Well, joining us now for more is retired Ambassador Gerald Firestein. He's the Senior Vice President at the Middle East Institute and a former U.S. Ambassador to Yemen. He joins us now from Washington, D.C. And Mr. Ambassador, thanks for joining us again. Now, there are those in this region who feel a little dismayed by this report because they feel it sort of will weaken the Saudi-U.S. relationship at a time when the Iranian threat has got many people in that part of the region worried. On the other hand, there are those who welcome the report, but say given its conclusions, it doesn't go far enough toward actually taking sanctions, especially against NBS. So first of all, just your reaction to the report and the actions that the Biden administration has taken.
Thanks, and first, it's a pleasure to be with you today. Let me say that the report itself doesn't come as a surprise to anyone. I think it's been an open secret for a couple of years now that the U.S. intelligence community had concluded that Mohammed bin Salman was certainly the decision maker, certainly the main actor in the decision to go after and murder Jamal Khashoggi. So that part was anticipated. The big question was, how is the Biden administration going to respond? And as we've heard from your correspondent, the fact of the matter is that while we don't know all of the details yet, and perhaps won't know until tomorrow, the reality is that the administration decided that Saudi Arabia was too important a partner in the region to really go aggressively towards sanctions.
Right. But what about this strategy being taken by President Biden that he's going to dialogue with King Salman and not MBS, even though many people think that the Crown Prince really is actually sort of the de facto ruler of the country? I mean, is that an effective strategy? Does it really accomplish anything?
Well, it's okay for the time being, of course, and you know, the president was very clear in saying that he personally would not engage on a state-to-state level. He's going to deal with King Salman as his counterpart, head of state. They will continue, the administration will continue to deal with Mohammed bin Salman in his capacity as Minister of Defense, and Lloyd Austin, the new U.S. Secretary of Defense, has already spoken to him in that capacity. But that only works as long as there is this fiction, if you will, that King Salman is actually making the decisions in Saudi Arabia. When the king leaves the scene, which is almost certainly going to happen during the course of President Biden's tenure, then the likelihood is that Mohammed bin Salman is going to be the king and the effective ruler de jure as well as de facto. Then the question is going to be, how will the administration respond?
Right. I want to broaden this out a bit regionally. Now, of course, the U.S., the Biden administration, previously saying it will no longer support Saudi Arabia's led coalition in the war against the Houthi rebels in Yemen. But since that time, we've seen the Houthi rebels go on an offensive. We've seen other Iranian proxies, such as these Shiite militias in Iraq, go on the offensive. You just heard, perhaps, we had a report on what appears to be an Iranian attack on a Israeli-owned vessel in the Gulf of Oman. I mean, should the U.S. be taking into account what some in the region, and certainly here in Israel, feel is in sort of emboldening Iran to sort of act more aggressively at least through its proxies, if not directly now?
Well, I certainly agree with that sentiment. I think that it's important for the administration to calibrate and to take into account the actions of Iran and its affiliates throughout the region as it tries to move forward. I think we saw in the case of Yemen, President Biden trying to change the dynamic, changing the narrative of how the U.S. was going to engage. And now the ball is really in the Houthi court to respond. What we've seen, as you said quite correctly, is the Houthis expanding their aggression not only against Saudi Arabia, but internally in Yemen. And the question for the administration is going to be, how do you ensure that the Houthis don't see the U.S. move as a sign of weakness rather than a sign of trying to bring a resolution to the conflict. Same is true with Iran. One can say, hopefully, that perhaps this is just a period where the Iranians are trying to test the boundaries of what is going to be acceptable. We saw today also that they've rejected the European proposal to bring the parties to the JCPOA back to the table to begin negotiations. So they may be just testing the new administration to see how far they can go. It's going to be important for the administration, as they did in Syria the other day, to demonstrate to the Iranians that there are still clear red lines.
All right, and we'll see if the Iranians respond.